everyone. You already know who it be. It's your girl Cootie, and I'm checking in with something exclusive today. Some of you guys may know who I'm sitting with right now. Some of you may not. If you don't know who I'm sitting with, you're about to find out after this interview. Go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
My name is Maryvn, aka Robbyn. I'm from the streets of Miami. I grew up, born and raised in Miami, Florida. At an early age, I began to live a precarious life, as many of us have. And back in the 80s when I grew up, I don't know if a lot of you know, if you're my age, I'm kind of old geezer right now, but you know, I was young one time like y'all, like a lot of these dudes right here, sitting beside me. This is my calves. But I took to the streets at an early age. You know, and back in my day, we used to rob tourists. You know what I'm saying? Tourists was a big thing back then. You know, you either was doing two things back in the 80s. You was selling crack or you was robbing. You know, and one of my castmen here, Mr. Othello, he was one of the best robbers in Miami.
Oh, so you was rolling with him?
Yeah, actually it was a few of us.
A few of y'all?
Yeah, it was a few of us.
How many roommates did like?
Well, we in our neighborhood, we called the zone. It was probably like roughly, it was probably like 6 or 7. Me, you, Sid, Devery, Zach, Griff.
That's that person.
Yeah, Griff.
So you got Grill,
Jabo. Probably like dude.
Let's say it's a good 10.
Yeah,
good 10?
Good 10, 12.
10. And we probably was the most notorious, but there was other robbers in different little neighborhoods. You know, Edison had their robbers. I mean, you could be riding down the street, you see dudes standing on the streets, waiting on tourists to come off the expressway.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you know, we were opportunists. You know, we were young.
Of course, you just wanted some cash.
Yeah. So I grew up snatching pocketbooks, and most people were cringe on that, but you know, that was a lucrative business back then.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I probably was one of the most notorious person that was back in that time. I didn't play the radio. Just put it like that. So as time grew on, you know, I graduated from snatching persons to the drug game. But you know, once you got robbery in your blood, you never forget it.
So you went from snatching purses. You went from snatching purses all the way to the drug game. That's a big step. What escalated that? No, how you go from just snatching purses, you know, to, you know, being in something like that? You know what I mean?
Well, it's all the hustle. You know what I'm saying? And when we came up, we looked at drug dealers as like soft, because all they had to do was stand out there and wait on money to come. We looked at what we were doing as robbers as more of a hands-on, because we had to actually go get ours. Yeah. We had to grind and get ours. You know, it was a coordination of what we did. We went out and stole the cars. We went out and you know, we had to follow tourists. We had to make sure we had the right tourists. There was a lot involved in what we had to do. You know what I'm saying?
Job.
Yeah. Job.
We went to work every day. Every day with grands.
Got clock in.
We got grand. We sitting on grand. We going to work. Yeah.
Every morning. We looked at we called tourists the phone. You know what I'm saying? And that's how we describe that phone. See, many of these terms y'all hear yourself saying now, we done been using all that. What's that other thing that we used to say? What nobody used to say? What I do? Yeah, those old terms. We've been on those terms.
What they do?
Yeah, what they do.
So some people may say, you know, they may be like, how did you guys not have a conscience while you guys were doing that? You know, like, y'all knew what y'all was risking. How did y'all wake up every day knowing that risk was on, you know, on the back of y'all mind and still do that? Yeah, because look where it got you. You know, how did you not, like, you know, how did that not cross your mind? You know, like,
What do you mean if I had a concept of what I was doing?
Yeah, like as far as like, you know, as far as how did you get up every morning and still, you know, and still do that knowing that, you know, one day it can all fall back?
Well, you don't look at one day it all fall back. You know, when you just think of a time or place or situation where your choices are limited. You know what I'm saying? I spoke about in the interview, the last interview that really sparked this interview, this Chasing Your Dreams interview with QUEENZFLIP about social scientists and how social scientists are able to coordinate or direct the ebb and flow of what they do is a ratio. And people, they kind of like some people took that the wrong way and didn't know what social scientists means. So today I'm going to use a different term. It's called prison pipeline. So when you understand what the prison pipeline is, the prison pipeline is a system that's used to determine, based on ratio or percentages, how many people is going to make it out of a situation that they create, and how many are not. So they create, what they do is, they create smaller classrooms. And when they create smaller classrooms, they create situations where single parents are raising children. So to make a long story short, when your choices are limited, you don't worry about the consequences of your choices. You just worry about trying to make it
Get out of that.
yeah, to get out of the situation that you wake up to every morning.
Yes.
You ain't worried about 15 years down the line. You worry about helping your mother, or you worry about being able to look up to par as your peers.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So I didn't never think about what was going to happen to me 30 years from now. I mean, but when I was snatching persons, you have this divide between culture, between white and black. So you think see when people hear about you snatching person, they think you snatching person. No, we were grabbing people that come from other countries. There was a difference. I wasn't snatching an old lady's person that walked out of grocery stores. You know what I'm saying? We preyed on tourists. Perhaps foreign, perhaps white tourists. I mean, that's just something we did. That was our lifestyle. We always lived precarious lives. And when you black and you feeling like you're doing something to somebody white, there's no conscience. If there's a conscience, there's a sense of gratification. Well, I fucking practice up. Or we slamming practice. So we using this type of terminology. There's a sense of enjoyment. There wasn't a sense of regret. Now when you get down the line, where we are here today, you may look back on there and have some sense of regret because now we're a little older and we understand life a little different. And guess who just walked in the door?
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
And yourself?
Well, come on over. He kind of like be a little jammed up right here. But
Who's that?
that's Brina.
Okay.
This is the character Brina is gonna play in the book Sweet Prince of the Ghetto.
Sweet Prince of the Ghetto.
That's
what everybody want to hear. Sweet Prince of the Ghetto. How did that book conspire?
Let's see a little bit.
I think we all want to know that. Sweet Prince of the Ghetto.
Exposed my age. Well, actually, Sweet Prince of the Ghetto original title was Blood on My Hands. And what happened was, when I titled Blood on My Hands, I didn't research the title. When you write a book, you gotta research the title. I guess you have to go on. I can't think of the name, but I didn't research the title. So when I went online, I seen there was a lot of blood on my hands. So I didn't want my title to get mixed up with the other blood on my hands. So I had to think of a new title. But I haven't already wrote the book, and the book hasn't already been rated. This book in its original title was rated 5 stars on Lulu online. So what I did was, after I learned the different titles, and it's probably about 20, blood on my hands, blood on my mind, blood on my finger. So I had to really get it out of that blood on my hand title, and I wanted something to stand out by itself. So when I looked through the book, I was trying to figure out which would be a better title.
So was this the first book you ever wrote in prison?
No, this is probably about the 7th book I wrote in prison.
The 7th?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
So
probably number
when
7.
do you say that you started writing?
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just introduce all the characters in the books that we're gonna kind of skip over a little bit. But this is Brick right here. He's one of the main characters in Knock Knock. It's Brick. Brick, say hello to everybody. Brick.
So what character does Brick? What does Brick have to do with this book? Like
Brick is the main character in this book. Brick.
What does he portray?
I don't want to get too far in the character into the but this book is about an informant. And the informant in this book is called Knock Knock.
Informant as a snitch?
Yes, as a snitch. Yeah. But Knock Knock is a part of the group, but nobody knows who he is. So you got to find out who Knock Knock is. It's like 9 of them in the group.
So that's basically a mystery book right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, to be honest with you, when I was writing these books, I didn't have the idea of it turning out the way it did. These books kind of like shape their own self. They kind of like mold themselves. And when you're a writer, the worst thing you want to do is write a book with an idea from start to finish. You want that book to tell itself. And most of the books that I wrote, they told themselves. And I can't explain how that happened.
All of your books you wrote, those are like true stories, like.
I wouldn't say true stories, because if I said that, the feds would probably not.
Oh yeah.
So I wouldn't say true stories. I mean, a true story is a non-fiction book. These are fiction. These are tales. These books come from the streets.
Yeah.
These come from experiences I've seen. Lives. Things I've seen that other people went through and I went through. So the best writers are the people that write what they know about.
Yes.
So I wrote what I know about. It's no different than what rappers do and what they rap about. You know what I'm saying? Lyrics. So that's what I did. When you see this heap of stuff right here, this is how I did my time. 23 years. This is how I did my time. I turned this, it looked like a heap of junk. My sister said, yeah, it do, but this is what I turned it into. This heap of shit right here, yeah. This is what I turned it into. So, but back to what I was saying, Brick is, Knock Knock is one of the, this is about a gang out over Lava. I'm glad you mentioned that. Because yeah, it's about a gang out over Lava that kind of like take over the streets of Miami. But one of them has a conscience, like what you just said, or just asked me about a little earlier. And he thinks he sees how the drugs is destroying the streets, so his community. So he has a conscience. He trying to want to take the crew down. So and Brick is the main one of this crew. So I don't know what's gonna happen to you, Brick, but knock knock at you.
Y'all read that book to find out what happens to Brick.
Yeah. And this book here, actually, this book is cropped from an 18-book series, Blood on My Hands series. It's 3 parts of this book. There's been a lot of confusion when they see book 2. Actually, book 2 is book 1 of this series. So when you see book 2, don't say, well, where's book 1? Book 1 is the Holy Ghetto. What I did with this series is, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Tales of the Crypt. But the Tales of the Crypt, they sit in the grave, I think they sit in the cemetery. Have you ever seen the book Tales of the Crypt, the movie? And all of there's 2 guys in there, I can't remember their names, but each one of them are telling different stories about what they had, what different stories about what happened in the hood. It's like Tales of the Crypt. And each story kind of like, they go back into, when they go to tell it goes into a pictorial scene and it's describing that story. That's what these tales are about. It's about different parts of the hood, different dudes telling different stories. So when you see Knock Knock, Knock Knock is telling the story. And you see Street Pistol Ghetto, Robbyn is telling the story. And each tale is a different tale, but all the characters meet up in the finale at the end. The ones that live, the ones that die, the ones that whatever happened to them in the story. It's a finale in the end, but this is really book 1, so don't get confused. and this is really book 5 of Street Princess of the Ghetto. But the characters just go on and you know, throughout the series. It's 18 books in this series.
So, like you said those books are tales of the hood. Everybody have different definitions of the hood. You know, some people say, you know, the hood is just a place where a lot of black people grow up. Some people say the hood is poverty. What is your definition of the hood?
Well, I'm gonna give you a little hood intellectual education about hoods.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be careful when you use these words, because a lot of these words don't mean what you think they mean. It's like ghetto. When you go to start to embracing these terms, ghetto, you should know the origin of them. Like project I was trying to explain last time too, in the last interview I had. The word ghetto was once used as a terminology of prominence. It was where Jews lived in the communities they called ghettos, and they was upscale. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't until they came up with the idea to segregate us in areas where they started using the term ghetto. You know what I'm saying? But ghetto wasn't always seen in a derogatory manner.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So when you say hood is basically a new term. It's a new term that basically we create. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna go nowhere. You're not gonna go anywhere in the encyclopedia and find an origin or historical background coming from talking about hood. But if you go in there, when you research ghetto, you're gonna find ghettos. You're gonna find what's the name? There's like different terminology they use with names when talking about ghettos. But what I want, the main message that I want you to do is, or people to do is, or people that look like me, or so-called black people, stop using these words that don't know and don't have an overstanding of them. Because every word has a preceding thought. And when you using these words around here and just flying them around, people the powers that be listening to you, they know what you saying, but they know what you actually they know the really meaning behind these words that you're using. You don't know, and you're making a fool out of yourself using them because they have a deeper understanding of, a deeper overstanding of that, and you have this understanding that you're trying to apply to them, and it makes you look. And I'm gonna give you an example, and I'm gonna just cut this off. A lot of people don't like me using the word nigger.
Yeah.
My son tells me don't use the word nigger. People say use the word nigger, N-I-G-G-A. So a lot of people like to be called black, right? The word black comes from nigger. In Spanish, I learned Spanish while I was in prison. The word Spanish, negro, means black. If you ever see someone talk about, a Spanish guy explain, say negro, he's going to say el negro. He means the black. If you hear him, you're going to think he's calling you a nigger. But the terminology, this is the Spanish word, it means black. Negro means black. And when you trace the history back to the 60s and 70s, they called you Negro. Negro. It all means black. So you could want to call yourself black. You still associate yourself with being called a nigger. The term negra was also meant white. It didn't mean like a curse on you, like they would have you to believe. So what I was trying to explain to one guy when I wrote a tweet was, if you knew the effort that they put into making you dehumanize you with the term nigger, and how you embrace it now, you flip the whole thing on them. They put a lot of effort into them. Scientists, clergymen, historians, all the other people. But there was a lot of effort put into this term nigger to degrade you.
Label us.
They label you. And you turn that whole thing around. You know what I'm saying? Even you can go to some white people, they call each other nigger. That is the correct terminology. They should be calling each other nigga because that's what the word was originally meant for. You don't know that,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm telling you. The word nigga was originally meant for them. It wasn't meant for us. So, where were we?
So, as I heard you say, you said this is your son.
Yeah.
Okay, for the viewers, they don't know that this is your son. Introduce yourself, sir.
This is my son, Versace Mitch.
So, that's your dad. How old are you?
33.
33. And if you guys don't know, Maryvn did 26 years in prison?
23 years.
23 years.
Over 23 years.
Over 23 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
But when I left the street, my son was 8 years old.
Wow.
So I mean, to get back on what we were saying about social sciences, when our prison pipeline, another thing I want y'all to understand or understand is that the fact that prisons is designed to distort families.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It has its history, or its significance in history, or it has its significance in the powers that be agenda. You know what I'm saying? My son was 8 years old. We were like this before I left. They gave me 30 years.
For that? They gave you 30 years for that? What's that?
6 bags of sugar.
6 bags of sugar.
Yeah. I got 30 years.
Wow.
So, to reflect back on the question that one of the guys asked in the last interview.
Yes. Which question? I read some of it. I watched the interview, and some people were saying, did you snitch? How did you even, stay, sane in there? 30 years. 30 years? That's a long time.
Okay, let me back it up for you for a minute. The most disturbing idiosyncratic thing that I find about you so-called black people, and I don't mean to say you so-called black people, but black people, is the fact that they don't want to know who they are, they don't want to find out what happened to them, and as soon as someone come along, they try to enlighten them on what's going on in their lives, they feel like someone's attacking their comfort zone. I did 23 years, 2 months, and 21 days on death. You do 26 on death. They ain't give you a damn motherfucking day for this.
Some sugar.
Yeah. And how this come about is, let me just give you a small example. How this come about is, the government have what they call a reverse sting operation. In a reverse sting operation, the government acts as a seller. They're a drug dealer. But the government can't sell you drugs. So what they do is they use sham. So in other words, they took this sham right here, this sugar right here, and they wrapped it up. And you really shouldn't even use sham in the same sentence as drug because this sugar. There's no such thing as sham drugs. But they use these kind of operations to ensnare us and trap us. And what they do is once it's over 5, that was the old law, they put you in the sentencing category, which is 10 years of life. So once I got over the 5 kilograms, which was the sugar, they put me in 10 years of life, and because I did cooperate and other matters took place, they gave me 30 years. And they had it all wrapped with like these, and I used clear tape, but they had brown tape with 1 kilo to represent each one of them, and at the bottom they had the word Clinton on it. So ask me why do they have the word Clinton on it? Well, first it was a little sarcasm, but secondly, back then in the 90s, there was always stories about Clinton having to do, I don't get into that, but that's how they had it wrapped.
Okay.
1 kilogram, and the bottom word had Clinton on it. But the whole package was turned out to be sugar.
So
they they said because I thought it was cocaine, it didn't have to be cocaine. All they had to prove was that I came to do a cocaine deal. Yeah, I wouldn't go do a cocaine deal, but it wasn't cocaine. So in the real world, that's not how it happened. But in the feds, they have these laws that's set up where when they catch us, people that look like us, they damage when they get it. So you gotta be careful. And the feds for real dealing with this law.
So you're speaking to young men that's sitting in your shoes right now, that's gonna be watching this, sitting from a prison cell. You're speaking to them that they need to be careful. What would you say to young men that's sitting in the prison cell right now? Because you are able to write books. Some people cannot even eat. They can't even sleep while they sit in that cell. How would you say that you maintain? Like, what advice would you give them to do? Because you're an inspiration to men that's going through the same thing right now. Even men that has did the same years that you have did, and they're thinking like, well, like I'm sitting here, I'm not doing anything. Like, look what you're doing. It's not a lot of men out here that get out of prison doing those many years that's doing something so inspirational like this. So
well,
what would you say?
That's a good question. It's a simple answer to it. The best way to answer that is to understand, to understand is that prison is a place where your life is shaped. You can let prison shape you to the best person you want to be when you leave there, and you can let it shape you to the worst person you want to be. 9 times out of 10, if you walk into prison and you have a little bit of time, you don't really have a lot on your mind. So you go in prison and you get with your homeboys and you find out who got the gambling tickets, who doing what, whatever the negative you want to find out who's doing that. So it's a place where it shapes your life. So if you go in there with that attitude, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna come out and you're gonna end up back in the same place again. When they gave me my 30 years, I went to Atlanta Penitentiary. It was a pen back then, one of the worst pens in the United States. You know what my friend gave me? 2 knives. Because he had already defined me. See, once people define you, like white people have defined us, they have an expectation of you. But this mom, he done came to prison. The first thing he gave me was 2 knives. He didn't tell me. He didn't tell me what they for. I already knew what they were for. So what I did with those 2 knives, I planted one outside where I used to run all the time, and I planted one in the unit where I had to sit all the time. He told me to keep one on me all the time. That's what I did. He should have gave me 3 because I stayed in the library as well. But shit, if that's the case, he should have gave me 4 or 5 because I had to go to the mess hall. But he gave me 2 knives. So while I used to be out there running with those knives, that's all used to be on my mind was those knives. So one day I was thinking, and I said, man. And I look around this prison and I said, man, ain't nobody gonna think about me. So you have to make that decision. I had to make a decision back then of whether I want to keep running around with these knives because the knife was stressing me out. I was wondering about who I was going to use them on. You know what I'm saying? Because I had already anticipated a scenario taking place because I got these knives.
Yes.
So I was like, nah, I got 30 years. I got to get out of prison. So one day I just see dudes running around in units with these books right here. It was just coming out. They call urban books. And I'm like, damn, man, what they read. And that's kind of like really what got me interested in writing. I used to see dudes running around changing books. And one day I just asked the guy, I said, let me see that book you got. He gave me, but I think it was Sister Soul, but the code was going to have. Huh? Who?
Bussin'.
Good book. Good book.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a good book. In fact, I read Code of Never probably about 3 or 4 times. And then I was like, damn, I wonder can I write that shit? And I started studying. I knew nothing about it. I didn't choose to write. I didn't think I could be writing a book. I started studying everything about writing. Every piece of newspaper that I got, every piece of article that I can read, every book that I can read that taught me about creative writing, I started studying it. I didn't just get into writing. You know what I'm saying? So the very simple person about whether I tell them, you got to learn what you want to get out of prison. Because you can go to prison, and do all the wrong things. It's up to you. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to go in prison and turn out no better than what you came went in. The object is to get out.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So if you go in there with the objective to get out of prison, God gonna open the doors for you to help you get out. If you go in there with the object of this bullshit on your mind, the devil gonna open the doors for you to get into bullshit. So it's up to you. You know what I'm saying? It ain't up to the wardens. It ain't up to the guards that supervise you. It's up to you. You got to make that individual decision. And the main thing I would like to stress is that, man, they gave me 30 years. You can't even, the average person can't even imagine.
Yeah. 30 years. That is true. It's a lot of time on your hands. A lot of things go south.
Yeah, the shit I need to go through for 30 years.
So, would you say, like, in those 30 years, like, did you have a lot of temptations? Like,
That's the thought that kind of makes me teary-eyed. I mean, y'all don't worry about it.
and that's fine, and that's fine.
But, what I was saying is you can't imagine waking up every day for 30 years, being through in the cell. Motherfuckers telling you what to do, how to do it. Each time you go in that cell, you hear that door lock on you, motherfuckers slamming. You got 15-minute calls, limited by 300 minutes.
You taking me back now, come on. I'm right behind you, bro.
Call home,
Yeah,
all type of
20
shit.
20 years?
Yeah. So, shit.
Wow.
I know what you're talking about.
You got family issues, your children growing up without you. That's some agonizing shit. Motherfuckers sneering, snarling at you all day. People can't imagine. And just waking up I woke up for 30 years, for 20-some years. Just imagine a motherfucker that got life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He waking up with the reality that he ain't gonna never make it out of here. So you can't. The average person can't imagine the psychological impact waking up to 30 years. I mean, 1 year, 2 years, that's cool, but man, look here. I was in that cell one time, they told me, when they locked them doors, you in there with another nigga or 2 other niggas, and you gotta hear his fart, and hear his piss all motherfucking night. You know what I'm saying? And you gotta hear his stories on top of your stories, hear everything he going through. I mean, this day after day after day, you waiting on mail calls. I mean, that's some agonizing shit. And the worst thing you can do besides losing your life is to lose your freedom. Lauren Hill said, I heard that from Lauren Hill, it ain't come from me. The worst thing you can do is lose your freedom, man. The same motherfuckers that look like you are the ones that's gonna be turning the door. Now I see hear that door close in time. That motherfucker, some of them close it slow. Like, God damn, you like a turn in your gut. Some of them turn it fast. Pop. And once you know that motherfucker door closed, your whole world is stopped.
That's how life is.
Yeah, you can stand motherfucker, you gonna look like this. You just wait on watching the motherfucker until they come open. You have somebody there just standing there the whole 2 hours, 4 o'clock count. They're just standing there and watch and wait until the next one coming open. So I don't want to talk about what I did when I was in there. Because you can't walk in these shoes that I walked in. stories I tell in these books, it's the life that I live. It's like people trash on me.
What's that? What's all these? What's all these on the table?
All these my manuscript. This is all the work I got since I was in prison.
Wow.
23 years.
Wow.
This is what I got. This is what I got to show for. And this goes back to your comment about what would I tell somebody who's sitting in prison that's trying to get out. You got to make a choice. I made a choice. I had one fight while I was in prison, the whole 23 years. And that was something I instigated. One fight. I didn't go in there for nobody. And they didn't come for me. Because when you have a reputation, that precedes you. You know what I'm saying? But you don't have to have a reputation. Nobody just, if you're going to get into what you choose to get into. So, to the person that's sitting in there, man, you gotta study yourself to be approved. You was put into a predicament, and now you gotta finesse your way out of that predicament.
So, what age were you when you got arrested? What age?
I was 31.
You was 31? So, you was 31, how old are you now? Oh, you about 50.
55.
Okay. You still young. Young. So,
Man, I'm old easy now.
young.
I used to jump over the gate like it wasn't nothing. Shit, you try to jump over the gate, now my whole feet get tangled up in that motherfucker.
So you were 31.